Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scousers Morning Coffee or Tea, presented by Reckless Coffee. It's just myself and Gordo today, no Tamuchin, due to personal reasons. I'm not sure actually, because I wasn't here last week, Gordo. So it's great to see. So it's great to see you. It's great to be back in, and I will be hosting for today. But yeah, Gordo, how you been? It's been a minute.
Oh man, yeah, it's I don't know if I can get used to the fluctuation. Look, I can handle I always say this when like fall starts in the Midwest, I
Right.
can handle like 9 months of 30-degree weather. It's
Mhm.
this like 36 degrees one day, and then the weekend is like 75, 80, and then you go back to 30. So right now it's 36 here in Chicago, so it's
Yeah,
freezing.
it's around the same temperature here in New York as well. It's pretty cold, and I had to put another layer in because I realized, like, hey, like 2 layers isn't enough, so I put an extra one in, and it does happen to be thermals as well because, geez, I was freezing this morning. Sir Z is here 9 minutes early. Good morning, good morning, Sir Z. Hope you're doing well. So keeping with the morning show tradition, we're going to be talking about. Apparently, there's more of an emphasis, right, on headlines more than sort of our opinions on matches and some of the results and stuff like that. So actually, let's start with a critical headline that was brought up here. So apparently, there's been like a shuffle in terms of the scheduling for our Christmas period. So it's confirmed with full December and January schedule. And let me actually bring that down again. So Gordo, this is our holiday schedule, and oh boy, it is
Yeah,
it is absolutely free. Like we thought the schedule coming out of this break was absolutely gonna beat us down, but then looking, 2 months away, December, right? From December 1st onwards, it's absolutely gonna be hell to pay. And if we somehow get through this without one major injury or two, we're probably set for the rest of the season, aren't we?
yeah. I mean, you look just even the first part of that, right? There's what is that? 2 weeks from December 1st to December 14th. There's 5 games, and three of them are away, and one of them is not even in the same country.
Right.
That's a like just to start off December is already tough because those aren't easy fixtures either. I mean, Newcastle away, Everton away, Man City's always a tough game. The Fulham game, you're looking at that might be the easiest matchup in that run there. So, and then it's a possible League Cup final like 4 days later. So, yeah, that's man. I just I think we talk a lot about like these players and how much that they're pushing back on the league, and it looks like they actually the Players Association took the what was it? Was it FIFA to court or
Mhm.
UEFA recently over the fixtures of like they just expanded the FIFA Club World Cup roster to 32 teams too, and so you look at this and you go, well, no wonder they're tired. I mean, look at how many games there are in the span of 2 months.
Right. And
That's an
Cersei,
entire NFL season.
absolutely, absolutely. I'm putting it into context. We're like, yeah, that's an entire NFL season. Cersei said he's worried about McAllister. Between us and Argentina, the poor guy will be done by Thanksgiving. Absolutely. And considering our first, well, rather our next pairing, right, is Curtis Jones, who can play that role, but then Endo, who's not necessarily a hand and glove fit to the system. It's kind of worrying if we get a drop off from the drop off from Gravenberg McAllister to maybe a Curtis Jones and Endo. Gally says here every Champions League side has the same number of fixtures crammed in. This is the result of having so many easy fixtures to start the season. Absolutely, and I think not to shameless plug here, I kind of wrote that on my piece for the American Scouser website. I'm not sure if it's up yet, but the great start I mean, the easy start rather is kind of rounding out now, especially when you come back from the break. I believe it's Chelsea, then some Champions League games against Leipzig, and then Arsenal and all that.
Brighton away.
Right, Brighton away, then Brighton home.
Yep.
Right, Brighton away in the cup, and
Yep. And then Brighton in the league.
right. So those aren't exactly some easy fixtures there. And I guess, for those who are saying that, for those who still have the benefit of the doubt, Gally says there's going to be published in the next 10 minutes.
John
Thank you, Gally.
foreshadowing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to read more, in
Yeah, if
10
you want to
minutes.
in 10 minutes, you can check out our website. I'll be posting the link here in the comments shortly. But Gordo, are you in that camp who say we haven't really played anyone yet. Because if we're looking at the fixtures, yeah, most of them is like, okay, we probably should have won that. But then at the end of the day, no fixture in the Premier League, especially now when teams are still kind of riding off of that off-season high, like off-season positivity, where everything's gonna be all right. All right. And we did play United away, we did play Milan away, and we did play West Ham in the cup. That was easy. But then, West Ham has historically kind of given us trouble, especially in the last decade. So are you in that camp? Because I'm kind of in the middle there. I think, first of all, you play who's in front of you. And second, while it wasn't the hardest fixture list, we could have easily gone on and slipped up anytime.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't play Man City and Arsenal if it's not in the schedule, right? So like you have no choice but to beat the teams in front of you, and we did that. And it's kind of, when you look back at it, the Nottingham Forest one, it's like, man, that Nottingham Forest at home, that should have been another 3 points, and we'd be looking at I still think it's phenomenal, because don't forget too, like, not only with the fixture list, and we beat who we had to beat, and who the fixture list said, but we also have a brand new coach, without and so, like, I think we set ourselves up with a great foundation, because you're still going to have to play these teams somewhere in the league. It's unfortunate that they crammed such a difficult schedule through the winter, and we didn't like space out the bigger games with a smattering of easier games. But again, you can't play Man City if it's not on the schedule. And also, Nottingham Forest gave us a trip up, so everybody's has the potential to beat you. I think that's what makes the Premier League so great. But yeah, I'm really happy, because this season, I think top 4 is really all my expectation. You get a trophy somewhere in there at the beginning of the season, you get a trophy somewhere, and top 4, I think that's a very successful season for Sluts. So I really do think that we put a great foundation to kick off on. And if we drop a couple points here and there, we've done enough, I think, in the first month and a half. That's going to help us out. So we're not going to drop too far down the table.
Yeah, I said at the end of the Forest loss, kind of like, if this is the banana skin, if this is the like unexpected loss that we're gonna have this season, it's easy to get it out of the way early, so we can kind of make up for it in the end. Because last year we kind of saved up those weird losses towards the end when we were challenging for the league, like those losses against Palace and Everton. Like, they kind of bit us in the ass towards the end there. And Cersei says that every game could have been a banana skin, and Forest proved that absolutely. And that Crystal Palace game, if the ref decided to make it about himself with that Van Dijk pull against was it Mateta? I'm not sure. But like, if the ref decided to make it about himself, then we could have easily been talking about a draw or even a loss, instead of that win there. So listen, we play who we're scheduled against, and we managed to get where we are. Obviously schedule helped, but then it's because of our play, it's because of our merit. So we'll see. Cersei said these next set of games will be the litmus test now. Absolutely. And not including this list, Gordo, including the game against Chelsea, the game against Leipzig, obviously Arsenal in there. Are you highlighting a particular fixture? Like, I know it's tough, right? Because these are a lot of teams that can test us, but obviously, aside from Man City and Arsenal, because obviously those are like the cream of the crop who are trying to measure up against, who else are you looking forward to facing in that particular group of teams?
I think there's a really difficult, especially if we make it into the semifinals of that League Cup, there's a difficult stretch there of West Ham away, Man United at home, who are probably looking for a little bit of revenge. Now, what you also have to remember is, like, these are humans too, so they also have like family events they go to. So they're doing a little bit of holiday celebrating for Christmas and also New Year's. And you've got, United looking for a little bit of revenge, possible big League Cup semifinal if we make it there, and then FA Cup third round, which, we have to make it in that too, but you don't know who you pull. And then Forest away. So, that's that little stretch there. I'd say that the United home game is probably the most difficult if you look outside of this City Arsenal.
Absolutely. I agree as well. That stretch looks like, on paper, it looks like, right? It's like going to make you cringe.
With it's 3 different competitions right there. Yeah. And then you've got one team that beat you, and you got to play them away now. And then another team that you beat at their home that are looking for revenge too. And West Ham away is always a difficult game. So it's there's too many variables there and then you smash in the holidays, and yeah, who
Yeah.
knows?
Absolutely, absolutely. Serzi says Tottenham away, which is a good shout. Like I know I give a lot of basketball references in this channel, but that is going to be a basketball game if I've ever seen one. I probably just jinxed it. It's probably going to be a 1-0 to us or something. But like the way Postecoglou plays and the way that we could play, like obviously it's a different team now, right? A different team that's more focused on control. But you there are times in the game, I don't know if you noticed, Gordo, where the club influence is still there. Like the influence to just go out and then just go for the jugular, even though we got a lead, and kind of like, just go for the throat
Yeah.
instead of just slowing things down. Do you think that's something that we should retain or kind of should be stamped out eventually the longer that slot, stays with the team? Because, I mean, I see it and it still gives a smile on my face,
It's that
bringing,
because you've got a bunch of really talented attacking players, and they have been given like free reign, especially at the end of the game. Like if one of them's on, 2 goals looking for a hat trick, and they've kind of been given free reign to just go out and be explosive. And now it's like rein it back. So when you get into the rhythm, especially you see it the most, I think, when we're in that cruise control of like 2-0 up and we have all the possession, and you see them slipping back into it because they're so comfortable in the game and where they're at in the game. That's when you slip back to what's most comfortable. And so I think we'll see that from time to time. And, I think that's not the way that Slot plays, but I'm sure there are games where he'll implement that, right? To go all out for a little bit. Maybe there's a period of time where we've got him so much on the back foot that we can go after him and maybe, get another goal or two at the end of the game. But for the most part, it does look like he likes a much more controlled and calm finish.
Yeah, the best part, I mean, the most ideal scenario would be him taking some of the best parts from the previous regime, right? And then kind of implementing it to his style, which so far, knock on wood, has been the case with the exception of that Forest game. Ryan is here. Hello, fellas. I think Fulham will be tough after the derby and before Spurs. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you'll tune into the panel show to see one of our contributors there. I forget his name, but he's a Fulham fan. I think they put a pretty good account of themselves so far this season. Pretty competent team. And obviously, the teams that we don't really look at, like obviously there's Everton and Spurs. It's kind of like historically the team in the middle ends up being the banana skin and gives us the harder time. So that's a good shout, Ryan. My boy Justin is here. Hey, me and my buddy Yuki watching there. What the hell are you on about, man? Serzi says, feels like the players revert to type. I think it's helped us a few times. Absolutely. Like I mentioned, kind of like the best parts of the previous regime, which is there are times where it's like 20 minutes in, Gordo, and then it's just quiet. And then we absolutely just go ham, and then we're up 4-0 or something by halftime. And I believe that's like the club you're in a nutshell, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the slow starts and then an explosive, couple of minutes where it's like, yes, this is what I've been looking for, and then it goes quiet again for a little bit. So I think, and you see like there was a lot of talk in the beginning of the year about the crowd, how they've kind of struggled to maintain that like level of enthusiasm throughout the game because of that. I think they'll eventually get over it, but it almost amplifies that lull because the crowd also lulls too. So it's like it's dead quiet at Anfield, and also the play is kind of like, eh.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan says Alex. Yes, Alex is his name, of the Fulham gentleman who comes in. Yeah, he's a really, really great guy. Kind of takes everything in stride, considering some of the hardships that Fulham has gone through over the last few seasons. Tofus says, "Hope the atmosphere goes back to being electric soon." I mean, I don't know about that, Gordo, because I feel like the atmosphere is very, how do I say it? It's very authentic. Like if there's nothing going on, it's quiet. It's not like the atmosphere in Germany where it's constant drum beats and constant chants, even though you're down, let's say 4-0 or something like that. So in terms of raw atmosphere without context, that looks great. But then I believe like the Anfield atmosphere kind of reacts accordingly and is up for it when it needs to be. When it's chill on the pitch, they're kind of chill as well. So that's where I stand with that. Do you think that they should kind of be more I don't know, raucous, but then I feel like there's also that element of like why are you guys raucous? It's pretty chill
Yeah,
right now, you know? So
yeah, it's not authentic.
the
Yeah, I think
authenticity goes out.
yeah, that phrase is
Mm,
perfect for it, is authenticity, because in Germany and a lot of leagues, they do have like the cheerleaders. So they've got like the guy that stands on the scaffolding with like, like a megaphone, like, this is the chant we're doing now. And if you don't sing, like, people will call you out. There's a little bit of that there for a little when the fire wasn't god awful. There was the barn burners, and
mhm.
they had a cheerleader like that. And the guy was aggressive about it. Like, I remember him calling people out and like, you're not singing, you need to move. And like, so it's like, there's a lot of that, which, is it authentic? I don't know.
Mhm.
But there's one thing too, that like a lot of like pundits and ex-players and even players now, when they comment about the Anfield crowd, one thing you always hear them say is it's an intelligent fan base. And the reason is, if you've been lucky enough to go to Anfield or multiple times, even just once, you'll pick up on it that the crowd reacts not just to like the blue collar stuff off the ball of Liverpool, but they
Mhm.
react to the blue collar stuff off the ball of the other teams as well. It's
Mhm.
not just you don't pick it up on the mics because the mics are on the field, but when you're in the stands, there's murmurings around like, oh wow, nice pass, or great tackle, even if it's not that team. I remember I was lucky enough to go to the Champions League game the year that we won when we actually won the Champions League. It was one of the group stage games against PSG,
Mhm.
and at the end, the entire Liverpool supporters were applauding the PSG supporters at the end for like the effort that they did. It was nice, and the PSG supporters applauded the Liverpool fans. It was just like, it's one of those things I don't think you get anywhere else, and it is the authenticity. They pick up on the ebbs and flows of the game. Just because you don't hear it on TV does not mean they're not reacting in the stands. It is, the whole stadium is alive with the game.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Sergi says here the atmosphere is an extension of how we play, similar to when Julia was in charge. Yeah, well, Julia was a bit before my time, so I think you could speak to more of that, Gordo, compared to myself. Tofu says we don't need to be like Germany, but I do think there should be a minimum baseline of noise. I agree to an extent. Then again, it might be different when we actually hit some of those big Champions League nights, because it is very early in the season where things are pretty, I wouldn't say low stakes, but they're pretty much, it's not exactly semifinal against Manchester City or a semifinal against Roma back then, or a semifinal against Barcelona where we saw like the best of Anfield. So obviously we'll see, and so far the results have been convincing enough where it's just probably a nitpick. uh
Yeah, because like the chanting is supposed to push them forward, right? It's supposed to like encourage them to attack or like to be more aggressive. But if that's not the game plan,
yeah
the game plan is to step back. And as long as we're not like on the back foot, because there was the part of the issue with Nottingham Forest game when we ended up losing is we never actually stopped attacking, right? Like we were under the gun the whole time trying to push it. It was just they sat so far back we could not break their lines. Yeah, I think if it's a situation where we're down 1-0 and we're just playing it around the back and the Anfield crowd is quiet, I think that's when you got to worry. If we're playing it around at 2-0 up, I mean, I don't see a problem with it getting a little bit quiet, because there's no point to cheer to push them forward.
Tofu's also adds that also another nitpick I have is them playing LA through the speaker at the start of the walkout. Ruins the organic chants we usually have. It would be nice to have Kazi as well to hear his thoughts about this. But Gordo, what do you think about that?
At the beginning of the game, I think it's different because like you've got, everyone's coming to their seats and you're trying to start the tannoy is trying to start the fans off. I mean,
Yeah,
they'll play, and everyone says, oh, they play You'll Never Walk Alone across the speakers. That's why it sounds so good. They start it. Sure, they do. They started off to get the fans going, and then they actually turn the volume down.
Mm.
It's not all the way down. It does play through the whole thing if you've ever been there, but it starts loud. Everyone starts singing, and they don't need it to stay loud. They'll go down to keep everyone on pace. Because the other thing, too, if you've ever been to a game, it doesn't even matter what sport it is. If you've ever been to a game and a chant starts, the stadiums are so big that everyone's off if they're not like led together with this certain song, because like one side of the stadium starts singing it and it takes a little bit for the sound to get to the other side of the stadium. Next thing you know, everyone's singing it at different times.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, it's great that the only thing that we're talking about now is maybe the Anfield atmosphere, not the fact that we've lost 4 out of 6 or
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that. Well, speaking of teams that have lost recently, well, Thomas Tuchel has become England's manager, Gordo, and honestly, I was a little bit surprised that he was the choice here. But then, I actually rate the guy. I think he's a solid, no nonsense manager who sets up teams that are absolutely hell to play against. The League Cup and the FA Cup final that we played them against that went to pens comes to mind. So when this came up, Gordon, what was your initial reaction? Obviously, I mentioned mine. It was surprised, but how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I was a little surprised, but most of that was led on by the British media who wanted someone like Graham Potter because he's British.
Right.
And I think Graham Potter has not taken a job because
Yeah.
he's been waiting for this to open up, and it
Right.
doesn't open up for him. So I think, yeah, like that, the English media kind of tailored us to kind of expect an English coach. So
Mhm.
this, I think, was a little bit of a left field choice, but I think it's a great choice.
Mhm.
I really like Thomas Tuchel. I know that he's kind of a polarizing figure. I think that he struggled a lot in the media, like
Mhm.
dealing with day-to-day ins and outs. But I think him tactically, like this is a perfect role for him because he doesn't have to address the media every week. He doesn't have to deal with the players on a week-to-week basis. He can simply focus on the system, bring the guys in for a couple of weeks, figure it out, and then go back to their parents, basically. He's like the daycare
Yeah.
guy. I think he runs much better as a daycare than a parent.
And I think his style, like his football style, obviously really tough to beat. Not super attacking, but he's not a Jose Mourinho where it's like immediately and then hit on the counter. He does play a bit of positive football at times, but his teams are just notoriously set up well. I think it kind of serves the whole cup setup knockout kind of deal way better than it does like any other manager. Definitely more than Gareth Southgate, I would say. Granted, Southgate was like a penalty shootout away from everything, but then that's a conversation for the other day. In
Right.
terms of pedigree, he definitely has it in droves. Won the Champions League with Chelsea. You know, made Dortmund pretty competitive post Klopp, right? Like I think he won the German Cup and stuff like
Mhm.
that, challenged for the league. Yeah, but Cersei says here Tuchel had a choice, England or Man United.
Yeah, I saw it like Poch took the USA job and Tuchel took
Right,
the England job just so they didn't get called for the United job.
right. Gally says here, I think the over-the-top response by the media in England about him as being foreign is contrived, whether it's correct or not. Absolutely. For me, it doesn't matter where he's from. You get the best guy, right? Whether he's German, American, right? I don't know. You just get him. And I think, this is, as surprising as it is, he's, I think, one of the better choices out there, I would say. Would you have rather gone with the interim manager, Gordo, Lee Carsley, over Thomas Tuchel, who's like won it at the club level? I probably wouldn't have.
No,
Right?
no. And
Yeah.
he never struck me as someone who was comfortable in the position anyways. Like whenever he
Right.
addressed the
Yeah.
media, it was always like, setting it up for the next guy. Like he wasn't ready to take the position, I don't think either. So that's not what you want, especially for a team that has come so close to winning major trophies and has been in at least the quarterfinals of the last 4 tournaments now? I believe it's 4 tournaments. Weren't they not last Euros, but the Euros before that, weren't they in the quarterfinals of that one?
England.
I'd have to look back, but I'm pretty sure the last 4 tournaments they've been at least in the quarterfinals. So this is a team that is right there that needs the next push to win a major trophy. So I think it's the right move, and I don't think that an interim manager pushing him up. I think that would have been 2 steps back for the English national team. It is very historic. I see Cersei is talking about just the history between the 2 nations.
Right. Yeah.
It is, but this is the thing. I hate to plug this book again, but it's so good. This the Soft South Bastard, that the book about the chanting. Like so much of the game is now globalized that you're losing a lot of that regionality. Because I remember when Jurgen was first brought in, and Liverpool fans took right to him because of who he was. He's just very charismatic. But the rest of the country, the guys at the neutrality on the fence, part of the issue is I really like Klopp and I like what he's done with Liverpool, but I can't get over the fact that he's German. It took him forever to kind of be won over by Jurgen, and because he's German. So I do think it is a big history issue, but that is changing. The game is totally international now, and I think that those lines are becoming more and more blurred every year.
Yeah, Galley clarifies his comment here. The politics isn't what the media here is all talking about. They keep complaining about what it means to be an English coach. Be better if you want the job. Absolutely, 100%. Like, geez, that attitude led to Big Sam being named manager of
Yeah,
for a week. Yeah, exactly. Like, listen, I don't know. Like, and even then, if it was between a toss-up between Thomas Tuchel and Graham Potter, one replaced the other and was fired at Chelsea. One replaced the other and was fired within 6 months. So I think that kind of says it all between the pedigree between both managers. Moving on here, don't want to make this about England. I'm assuming you tuned in.
Yeah. I wish I had.
Yeah, but obviously, first game around Poch, and Gally made a video within the channel if you guys want to see one of our editions of the Redditorial talking about Poch's first win against Panama, now followed by a 2-0 loss against probably equal opposition in Mexico. Second game though, Gordo, how much are you taking from it? And I guess we're kind of gonna loop in the first game as well. Like, what have you seen with this loss and the win? Before it, that's kind of like observations, I guess, is my question so far.
So, it was good beating Panama because they basically knocked us out of the South America, the Copa America tournament. The only reason they really did that is because of that red card, but it did prevent us from going into and facing tougher opposition and getting more experience. Mm-hmm. I don't think that this defeat says much about Pochettino. I think it hopefully shows Poch, which shows the rest of the world, the giant gulf between the starting 11 and the rest of the guys trying to get minutes. Because I believe there was 5 or 6 like normal first team starters that did not participate in this game, if I'm not mistaken. So that's like half the squad of guys that would normally get the starting 11. It's the first time we've lost to Mexico since 2019. And it just was – we were bossed. From the minute that Jimenez goal, that free kick goal went in, we could not get anything going. It took us 78 minutes to get the first shot on target. I believe we only had 5 total. Just really not acceptable if you're looking at like a U.S. men's national team that's looking to get into deep in the knockouts of the upcoming World Cup. I think it just shows Poch and the organization like that gulf between the starting 11 and the rest of the guys. And you cannot win tournaments if you're not deep. So hopefully that changes.
Yeah, well, to be fair, Ryan says he's not surprised by the outcome considering the roster. I think looking at this without any context, it doesn't look great, especially given Poch's reputation in recent years. But then, as you mentioned, and what Gally is mentioning here, normal subs aren't even available in the camp. He doesn't even have his full squad.
Yes,
So listen, like 2-0, okay, fine. We'll take it on the chin, then we'll just go. There are going to be tougher tests and tougher tests with the full squad available. And it would be ridiculous to go like, hey, Poch out and stuff like that. I understand given the toxicity of the position and all that, but then I saw some pretty decent stuff against Panama. And again, the link to Gally's video, which I'll be posting, in a few here. It's not exactly the worst start in the world. I just feel like the poor dude is kind of on the spotlight now, considering the pressure of the role that he has to come into. So listen, like I said, I don't really have a horse in the international race, but since I'm American, I might as well just root for the U.S. national team. And I like the concept of, I feel like the U.S. is kind of like a sleeping giant. We were considered a sleeping giant once, Liverpool. Probably post Benitez era, where it's a great club. It's a big club with a big history. The U.S. is such a big country that can produce so much talent. It just needs the right system and the right approach. So I feel like, and I think you mentioned it a few shows ago, Gordon, where Poch could be the guy or the guy before the guy. So this could be like, the positive step forward.
Yeah, like I always say, and it's not just even the U.S. men's national team organization. It's just it's the sport in general in this country needs to move away from pay to play. They have to. We're not going to get better. We push so many young kids out who just cannot afford to play the game. I mean, think about how many, even just the Liverpool roster of the last 10 years, how many of those guys, if they grew up in a country where it was pay to play, wouldn't be professional athletes, let alone playing for Liverpool.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that definitely needs to change. I mean, in college, I used to do like some it's not so much coaching, but it's just like an after school, get kids off the street type thing in like the inner city of St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
And like the amount of good kids that were there, like, 9-10 years old, that could definitely, I'm not saying would be professional, but definitely would enjoy the sport. But just in the city of St. Louis, like it's a soccer town. So like
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of good soccer programs. They're all super expensive. Those kids will never play. They'll do something like basketball or football or something. They'll stay away from soccer, just how expensive it is in that area. And it's sad.
Right. Absolutely. And Ryan kind of nails that down here. I think it starts at the youth. So listen, and if you're going to think about it, it's literally the most accessible sport. All you need is an open space and a ball. Like anything can substitute as the goal, whether it's 2 plastic bottles or whatever. Like I used to do back in the day when we didn't have a goalpost. Like literally, all you need is an open goal is an open field. So Ryan says Gordo stole my thunder on the pay to play. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, if we go into that, that's going to be like a 3-hour show. Or
Yeah, we can do a U.S. men's national team problem episode.
Yeah. Well, speaking of problems here, and I believe you sent this, Gordo. Obviously, Klopp has joined Red Bull to become their head of global soccer. So, listen, it's not exactly gone well with Dortmund fans, talking about how Red Bull essentially kind of came into the German league, kind of, became a commercial entity that's kind of the antithesis of German football. So listen, all right. So let me actually start by giving my reaction here. And listen, I think, at least for me, right, I can't speak on behalf of the Dortmund fan population, but at least in my opinion, Klopp has garnered enough goodwill for me personally to kind of make a career move that's exclusively about himself. He's done so much for the club, done so much for his other clubs. So I think, listen, if the man wants to move here, kind of chill a bit, make some money, I think he's earned that right. And I completely understand why that won't be okay for some people. I completely understand. I completely understand the reasoning. But you, Gordo, what do you think about this whole thing? That's my spiel. What do you think about it?
Yeah, Kelly comments. What I feel is like, he said while he was the manager of Dortmund, it's just like, this isn't right for football. Like, this is not the way it's supposed to be. I mean, the reason it's not called Red Bull, it's called just RB, is because in the German league, you cannot be named after a sponsor. So the official team name is like Rasenball, which is like lawn ball or lawn sport ball. And so, like, it's not, they like basically twisted the rules to get in. And everyone knows they have the logo of all the other Red Bull teams. So it's like the same club. It's one of those things that he does kind of take a back step on a history of thinking this is the wrong way. However, looking at it like glass half full, this is probably the way forward for most clubs. It won't probably be as obnoxious or as like commercially plugged as Red Bull is, because Red Bull, is in so many different things. But, you've got Manchester City doing the same thing with their teams. Liverpool was looking into buy Bordeaux. I think that more and more teams are going to extend their tentacles into other clubs and probably even sports. I mean, if you take the team names of it, look at all the owners in the Premier League. How many other clubs and sports teams they own? So like if you remove like the facade of the logo, you've already sort of have this going on, but it's not as like in your face. So I do think that is a step back in terms of like what he said. And I understand why the Red Bull or the Dortmund fans are annoyed by it, but I think it's the way that it's going to be for the remainder of our time.
Yeah, and I believe I'm quoting Timuchin here, like in honor of our fearless leader. I think he said it before. Everyone has a price, and I guess we know what I think we know what Klopp's price is here. Gally said further elaborates here. I don't think he doesn't have the right. I think everyone has the right to question what he has decided to do. Absolutely, and especially for who he is doing it for. Yeah, and I actually missed that part, Gordo, what you said about how he criticized them when he was manager of Dortmund. Like, putting that into context, I'm like, wait, hold on a minute. Really? He did that? Yeah. So, listen, yeah. I mean, I said I was okay with it, but then when you mentioned that, I'm like, wait a minute, because it's kind of
he said a lot. He said it a lot too.
Right. Just one time. Oh, he said it a lot, really.
Yeah. It was
Oh,
one of his things. He just didn't. Every time it was brought up, because it's a big thing in Germany. I mean, they're called one of the most corrupt teams in football. So I mean, it was brought up quite a lot. Like Germans love their justice. So
it's kind of like, if we're gonna frame it in a Premier League analogy, it's kind of him criticizing the hell out of, he criticized the hell out of Chelsea, United, Arsenal in the past, saying that we don't have the funds that those guys could spend, and then he immediately goes to a front office position for them, right? Like, yeah, jeez, man, yeah, like if it's framed that way, yeah, it doesn't look good. It doesn't sound good. But listen, I love the guy to death for what he's done to the club, but as Gally said, it doesn't mean we don't have the right to question what he's doing.
yeah,
So
and everyone has the right to change their opinions too. So maybe
true.
maybe he knows something we don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, he looks happy. I mean, I'm happy that Klopp is happy, I guess.
Yes.
That kind of sounds like I'm coping here. But he also criticized the overall globalization of the game in general, then joined the.
Yeah. I mean, that is, if you're just the most broad of terms, yes, 100%. That is perfect.
Right. Jeez, my first statement of like, listen, I love the guy is not looking good right now. Like, I'm not gonna clip that. Well, speaking of more, I guess, controversy. Again, an article that you sent over, Gordo. Young Premier League players are suffering more injuries. Premier League players aged under 21 are spending longer sidelined through injury than ever before, with knee problems on the rise. Yeah, and we talked about earlier in the show about how the absolutely, massive number of games is kind of being a big factor into this whole thing. And we did kind of mention where our December schedule is significantly, or rather the schedule after the break heading into the holiday season is kind of more than an NFL player plays.
Yeah.
Granted, it's a different sport, right? The NFL is 100% more physical. But putting that into context, that is a lot of games. And I think there's a part here, and yeah, there we go. Found it. Jude Bellingham has played 251 competitive games before the age of 21.
Yeah.
That is absolutely insane.
Yeah, and then the next line with David Beckham had just played 54 games by that point.
Insane.
That's
insane.
nuts.
Right.
Yeah, some of these are like, I've got the article right here to zoom in a little bit, but last year, under 21 players in the Premier League spent an average of 43.9, so basically 44 days out per injury, up from 26.5. It's almost double the amount of time they've spent on the sideline. And it's knee injuries, which that's like stress of running. Like that's the big, that the knee injuries is the one that's jumping up as well. So I know look, you can't, one of the great parts about this article is they frame it in a financial point of view, because I think that's why that we've continued to push the games forward, because it makes more money. So to frame it in the financial cost, so it says of the 915 injuries that occurred last year, it cost clubs 318.8 million euros, up from 288.55 million euros in the previous campaign. So for every 94 minutes there was an injury that cost 3,698 euros per minute.
Jeez.
So in terms of like player salary and them not playing. So I think that's the way that we have to do it, because if they want to keep expanding games and expanding the competitions and adding more teams to make money, then we also have to look at what it's doing to players and how much that's costing, and is it worth it?
But then at the same time, isn't the workaround towards that, Gordo, the whole, we're buying farm teams and stuff like that, so we got a player who's injured, we can easily get from the farm team someone who can replace him, so like, I don't know, it's messed up.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. It's absolutely messed up. We're gonna be seeing a whole lot of Thiagos in the future.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, it's like these players, they might, we talk about like the sports science has gone up and everything, and we're kind of pushing these players to the limits of that, because we've got the nutrition down, no one's smoking at halftime anymore, drinking a beer. But I think that we hit the peak, and now we're on the downward slope of like, we're maybe squeezing the orange a little too hard.
Yeah, I would think so as well. Especially considering like the Champions League expansion, it became like a whole league thing. Then we got the Nations League and stuff like that. And as you mentioned, more games for the Club World Cup,
Yeah.
which I'm glad when we won it. But if you're looking at it from a unbiased point of view, like what the hell is this tournament?
Well, we had to play like
Yeah,
children, and was it the FA Cup and like forget it was the FA Cup or League Cup, but we had to play children because like we were playing 2 games within like 15 hours of each other. Like we physically could not be in both places at once. So yeah,
yeah.
it's wild.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, focusing back, I guess, kind of circling back, we kind of went around the world here, England, the US, and now like global football as a whole. Circling back to Liverpool, obviously this weekend, back from the international break, playing Chelsea. I guess, Gordon, what do you expect to see there? Obviously, coming off the break, we haven't necessarily had a great record in the Klopp era. Might be different in the Slot era, right? Although that Forest game, and we talked about old habits dying hard. That Forest game was, I guess, the perfect example of old habits dying hard. Looking at Chelsea and their team there, obviously they score quite a bit, but looking at their defense, it's something that we can exploit. Like, how worried are you, I guess, coming into that game?
Oh man, well, you gotta hope that I'm not even gonna say it, but everyone comes back nice. That's what I'll leave it at. I'm not gonna jinx anybody by saying the I word, but yeah, it's definitely exploitable defense. We can definitely with passing and possession, we can exploit the openness because they're not going to play defensively. They remind me a lot of that 2013-14 Liverpool team where it's just like let's try and score as more than we let in, and they have the ability to do it. The difference between that 2014 Liverpool team is that this team is littered with talent. So, not saying that team wasn't, but they are much more expensive than that Liverpool team was. So if they do click, they're going to be a dangerous team. But I think they're still in the infancy stage of just trying to bang in as many goals as possible, and they can do it. So I think it's important just to stay in front of them and not let them get an early goal and kind of be taken over by the tsunami that's eventually gonna come in, because I think it's going to be an open game and it might be a back and forth, but we do have the defensive talent to contain them.
I believe Matouche said in the Monday show that he expects it to be a 2-2. Like, I expect it to be a basketball game as well, kind of in the 4-3s or even 5-3s kind of realm.
Yeah.
Cersei says your Chelsea will be a huge test, especially trying to keep Palmer quiet. Yeah, we have no Allison, and and I believe you called it a few shows ago. Go to that Giorgio deal is looking better and better as the season goes on, with Allison injured. And on that note, are you surprised that there's no concrete news in terms of contract extensions during this international break? Because I am, to an extent. Like, no news about Virgil, no news about Trent, no news about Salah. It's basically all quiet on the Western Front here.
It could also be maybe just the amount of changes that we made in the back office, that this is going to be like a less than public situation. Like, it's like, let's do the business. Let's just get, put the games out and the interviews and stuff out in public, and we'll do the business behind closed doors, which I would not be opposed to. I am surprised I haven't seen anything, but maybe that's just because that's a new policy moving forward. And it is always, though, when something comes out, it's like Trent Alexander's father's best friend that works at a deli heard that Liverpool's offering an extension. So it's never like a real reputable source when it first comes out. So
let me ask you, if we what point in the season in which there's no news, right, will you start getting absolutely worried? Because right now it's kind of building up with me, right? Like, I thought there would be at least some news for this international break, and I think there is a next one that's relatively soon, I believe.
Yes.
Or no.
No, it's ridiculous how many international breaks there are.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, well, before you go, I think by then, if there's no news, that next one, I would absolutely be flipping out.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but like, I would absolutely be flipping out.
Yeah, I would say like mid-January, because isn't it like, I think it's 6 months, it probably is individual based on the contracts, but usually it's like 6 months they are allowed to talk to, like, court other teams.
Right.
So that's like, you got to put and you could talk. I mean, I'm sure they've gotten text messages from their agents and stuff about inquiries, but like officially you cannot court other teams until the 6-month mark. So you want to kind of get that done before, those lucrative offers comes in, because the point is, if you go for free, they can offer you more in terms of like a weekly salary.
Mm-hmm.
So you really don't want to get to that point where they're floating numbers around.
Yeah, well, listen, hopefully they do come in with an offer for at least two of those guys. Cersei said here, I don't think Slot will allow a basketball game to happen. And it goes back to the point that I was mentioning earlier in the show. Old habits die hard. I feel like these group of players still have that Klopp DNA within them where they would fancy a basketball game, especially at Anfield, where I think we'll have the advantage. And, Gally kind of, puts that point there. Different animal on the road this season. They have issues at the back. And I'd argue we have more confidence in Keller than they have Sanchez. And they're also missing four guys to suspension and injury. So that kind of frames it, Gordon, that if this becomes a shootout, it heavily favors us anyway, even though that is arguably their strength. Wouldn't you say?
I could see it being one of those things where we go and score. Slot says, let's sit back because they don't have the talent to break us. They score. Then we have to like go into offense mode, and we can easily score because we can work it around, and they don't have a great offense. They're going to continue to be open at the back and provide those openings between the lines. And then they score, and then we have to open ourselves back up. And I could see it being like a basketball game. Like you said, I can see it going that way. But eventually, I don't know. I think like our back line, knock on wood, has been really good this season in terms of like how many clean sheets we have already out of the 7 or 8 games we played. I think we've only given up 2 goals, 3 goals.
Yeah, 2 goals. Yeah.
So
I was about to say like 2 goals conceded in 7 games. Jeez,
yeah,
that's
insane. That's pretty impressive. So I don't think that. I think there is a time and place that they just like totally. I mean, I'd hate to say that we parked the bus, but we can shut the game down for sure.
Absolutely. Although I would love to see, and we'll kind of get there, in terms of like a player to watch. Mine is pretty obvious. I would love to see Gravenberch in a game where it's absolutely open, and that kind of showed in the Man United game where they actually tried to play football with us initially, right? And the spaces that Gravenberch found in that game, like, oh boy, like I would love to see I mean, as much as it's gonna hurt like Cersei with like the heart issues and stuff like that, an entertaining back and forth game with our team, I think would be something that, as a neutral, would be fun to watch. Like me personally, as a Liverpool fan, I would love to see it. Gally and Cersei is saying here they can all sign for a foreign club effective January 1st.
Okay, yeah. So it is the 6-month mark.
Mm-hmm. And Cersei said they can speak to non-English clubs before January and sign a pre-contract in January. Gally says your Trent is too smart to sign with Madrid and take any negotiating from English clubs, whether he would play there or not. This is high stakes.
I don't know. I think that's being nice. If I'm a young player and I've got a good friend that already plays, and I look at that lineup of Real Madrid, like, why would you not? Because you can't. I think one of the big differences between like Steven Gerrard when he was getting courted by Chelsea and Trent is that like Steve had not won the Premier League yet with Liverpool. There was a big pull to like be the captain that brings it back.
Yeah.
And Trent's already done it. He's won everything he could possibly win with Liverpool. So like I think the lure of that lineup and just like maybe the relaxation of getting a nice big paycheck and winning a couple more trophies is bigger than I think we'd like to admit it is.
Yeah.
Because being a hometown player, I guess, is the one pull, but I think I myself would I might be tempted to play there.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm not too confident about Trent. I'm just putting it out there. I'm not too confident about him staying because I don't know. I kind of felt. I guess it's the fact that we've been spoiled by the last great Scouser who played for our club, who had to be forced out rather than leave on his own accord. Right, when he wasn't being given the terms that he wanted to close out his career in Steven Gerrard, and obviously it's unrealistic to kind of expect the same level from an entirely different player, an entirely different person. I guess that comes into play, but I don't know. Like, and you make a great point there, Goda, about how Trent already winning everything here, everything there is to win for Liverpool, kind of goes like, like maybe I want to try a new challenge. And you know what? I don't know. Like, I see a lot of people on social media going like, hey, if Trent leaves, that's gonna be really bad. I'm like, why is it gonna be really bad? Like he's kind of given everything that he's had for the club, won everything with us. Maybe I'm not seeing an angle here, Gordo. Do you agree with kind of that statement that it's going to be a bad look for him if he goes to Real Madrid? Or
I don't think it's going to be a bad look because you think of somebody that's done a similar situation like Michael Owen, and like I don't think it's going to turn out like that. That was pretty awful in terms of like the new team was being set up. It looked really good. He was like a linchpin. He was already Ballon d'Or winner. Like I really think that hurt the club. Like Owen leaving hurt the club like so much that's a huge reason of why that one stung and why it still stings. And then of course he comes back and plays for United. So like his legacy is totally tarnished with us. I don't think you could tarnish Trent Alexander-Arnold's record with us by going to Real. It would be bad because you feel like you want to keep those hometown players, and especially at that young age where he can still provide so much for us. But it's not always going to work out. And I think he's done enough to be like, yeah, that one's going to sting. But like in a couple of years, we'll look back and be really fond of all the memories that he's done. Now, I'm talking like he's already signed with him, but
listen,
I understand why people are freaking out, but I don't think it'll hurt us as much as like, when Michael Owen went to
maybe
Real.
it's like the Timuchin approach where you think about the most negative possibility. So when it actually happens, you're kind of shielded from the pain. Like, listen, the time I've been in this show, I get it. Like, I get it. Like my positivity and naivete has been driven out like slowly but surely. So listen, and I understand it. I understand the practicality of it. And which is why I'm kind of preparing myself to go like, yeah, listen, Trent, it was great. But and I totally understand, like no hard feelings. Kind of like I'll shake your hand if ever I see you, kind of deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Owen is our Anakin Skywalker. I was supposed to remember. But then, to be fair, Anakin turned back to the light side at the end. Cersei, and to be fair, my fucking nerd is showing up here. He turned towards the light side at the end, right at the end of episode 6. So, Gally says I'll never begrudge him, but if he wins 10 more trophies, I won't look at him as any more of a legend of football.
That's true.
Yeah. Same as Mbappe, to be honest. Absolutely. And listen, Trent in a Real Madrid jersey, people are gonna get on my ass. It just seems proper. I don't know, Gordo. The way he plays, the flair, the passing, it just suits a Spanish club that's just gonna absolutely dominate every other team that they play against, right? Doesn't it? Like
put him in Galacticos white with long sleeves. That's right.
Yeah. I don't know. I Liverpool fans are gonna get on my ass for this, but I see it, and it looks good from a neutral's point of view. As a Liverpool fan, it looks bad, of course, but as a neutral, I don't know. Gally said, I've said this before, I think would be a better Barca player than Madrid. Yeah, he might have to endure a bit of hardship. Some more hardship in Barcelona. So
it's more of a project than just slotting into that current lineup.
Absolutely. Well, looking at the weekend, Gordo, are you going to make any lineup changes or anything of the sort? Obviously, assuming everyone comes back healthy, right?
I was going to say, I think we have a couple more games today. Is it today or is that they're all wrapped up? They should be heading back today. I know the Nations League is done. But I thought there was one more South American game.
I have a confession. When it's break time for me as well.
Shut off.
Yeah, I shut off as well because I know when it gets back in, especially the context of our upcoming schedule, I know it's going to be freaking hell again, man. So I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure. I haven't been really paying attention to the internationals except for the fact that Virgil got sent off, apparently.
Yeah. He talked his way, which was the best part. It's just like he got a yellow and he's like,
it wasn't like a bad tackle or anything?
No, he got the yellow for the challenge, and then he just kept talking, running his mouth, and then he got a red for it. So it seemed like he was just like,
I don't know, man. Like, Cersei is with us in the comments, and he's like one of the conspiracy nuts of American Scouts. I don't know, man. That seems kind of.
It's a good look for him, that's for sure.
Right. So yeah, assuming everyone comes back healthy, Gordo, more of the same for you. Our strongest lineup.
Yeah. I think it would be nice to change that while everyone's healthy.
Yeah. Playing at Anfield as well. Might as well go with your strongest. Diaz in the wing for you?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Probably just he brings that level of like a little bit more chaos. Like I always say that the biggest difference, we've got we've got we've got a flathead and a Phillips screwdriver. They both screw the screw, but they do it differently. So like, you've got Diaz, he'll take the ball to the line and beat players, and I think that's enough to shake the defense up. So I'd probably put him on the wing, and then if everything goes good, then just do what we've been doing, and at 60 minutes switch him out, and then you get a real relaxed, calm on the ball player that can also cut inside and score with his right foot.
Gally says Diaz and Maka may sit. Coming back late from South America.
Okay, so yeah, there is it had the late South American games. Okay, that's
Listen, the Diaz thing, that's fine because we got Gakpo who could play really well there. McAllister sitting might worry me a little bit. Listen, as much as I've been harping on Gravenberg's great play over the last month or so in this channel, a lot of it is McAllister. Like the intelligence of McAllister kind of covering for him when he does his thing, and like the synergy between the two. Like, and then you can say the same for McAllister, how he's done really well. A big part is Gravenberg as well, helping him out there. So I worry a bit on that McAllister sitting, Gordo. You think I'm worrying too much? That's a big cause for concern, or
no? Because their role is intertwined. Like you can't play that without the other. Like it is two people, but it's one position almost in the sense that they're like two cogs where like they got to be working and they got to be timed together. So it takes a very special player to be able to single-handedly drag a team out of bad form. So and most of the guys will tell you that a lot of their good play is down to the rest of the team was helping them out. They got the good passes or they got the coverage when they lost the ball and that kind of stuff. So it would be a worry if he doesn't come back and he doesn't start
up front. And I don't want to really go into this because we're almost out of time, but you think Diogo Jota or Darwin Nunez would be better? And then probably, I'm assuming, an open game like this, although I could be totally wrong and we get one goal and park the bus or whatever. But do you feel like it's a Darwin Nunez game, or we just stick with our guns and go Diogo Jota?
You put Jota in there, but only because Darwin Nunez coming off the bench, like the best Darwin that we know, with the chaos and the timed runs and the efforts on goal and his work rate off the ball, I feel like is much more dangerous when the game is already sort of settled into a lull. He destroys the status quo, which a lot of, especially when you're up against like a weaker defense, once they get comfortable, sometimes they can pull through just because they've made it through 60 minutes. And then you throw somebody like Darwin Nunez who is like, his runs are unpredictable. His work rate off the ball is unpredictable. That can totally reshake. It's almost like restarting the game for defenders. So I'd start Jota just to bring Nunez on as a sub.
That's a good shout. Yeah, I'd probably go with the same, with the exception of Gakpo, probably starting for Diaz, especially if he comes back late. I actually would say that people are going to get on me for this. I would go Gakpo even if Diaz comes in early. I don't know. In an open game, all right, and this is on the precedent that I think it's an open game. It's going to be an open game, right? I trust Gakpo's decision-making more on an open game, where he's going to pick the right pass or make the right decision over a Diaz. And I'm not discounting Diaz because he's played really great. I just feel like in an open game, I feel like I'd go with Cody Gakpo. But then either way, it's kind of like it's like choosing between two of your favorite foods. Like either one is great, right?
Yeah, you're gonna enjoy them both. It's just
right. Absolutely. Before we go to score predictions, no concern at all from you that Kelleher is starting? You think Allison's gonna be
No, and you know what? It bodes really well for us because he was banging the drum about wanting to start. Now he's got his option to start. I mean, that's the one positive thing about Allison going down is you keep Kelleher happy because I think it wasn't one of those things where I felt like he came out and he's like, I definitely want to move. I don't want to be here anymore. This is making me sad. It's just like he wanted to play, and now he gets to play. So here he is. He's got the opportunity. He's got the hunger. So I don't have an issue.
Absolutely. Same here as well. He's kind of earned that trust, 2 cups with him in net, right? Like that's it's pretty solid record for a backup keeper. Of course, we're going to end the show with predictions, Gordo, because I don't know if it's going to be a Friday show. I think Gally's going to be hosting. They're going to be probably going into the match even more so than we are, but early predictions as we head out here for the Liverpool-Chelsea game.
I'll let you take the first stab.
The first one. I'd say a 4-2. I am again banking that it's going to be an open game, and I
Yeah,
feel like I will be horribly wrong when it comes in. But I'm going 4-2. I'm sticking with my guns here, 4-2.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. There's been, was it it was a Brighton game it was 2-2 with Chelsea, right, at one point, and then they scored the other two. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a 6-goal thriller. I'm gonna say 3-2. I think it's gonna be a little trickier. I think that this is it's a different test than we've had so far, and I think it's gonna be a slog. I think it's going to be definitely nerve wracking. So Timuchin hopefully rests up for the weekend because it's going to give it a little harder.
Right.
Headache.
Absolutely. And I feel like the difference is going to be the fact that we have Virgil van Dijk in defense to kind of organize everything. It's going to help us concede less than the opponent, and that means a win, right?
Yes.
Sergi said Reece James is back. Really? that is a bolt from the blue. Really.
Just, you think he goes right into the lineup though?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. But if he does, we have to play Diaz. Absolutely.
Diaz for sure. You just run him to the ground. He'll be like, "Guy, I'm gonna go back to the training table."
Right. Well, absolutely. And it's been a great show, Gordon. I appreciate you joining me here, and for everyone who's joined us here at American Scouser. If you haven't yet, please subscribe and like. It helps us massively. We're looking to get to 1,000 subs before the end of, I believe it was Thanksgiving. The initial aggressive goal was Halloween, but it looks like we're not going to be making that. So I guess we're going to be doing Thanksgiving there. So please like and subscribe. It helps us a lot. But if there is nothing else, please tune in tomorrow, I believe, for the Thursday night podcast and the fantasy show, if there's going to be one. And we will be seeing you guys soon. Take care.